If you're hearing this, sweetheart, it means I'm gone. I suppose that's the only way I could ever find the courage to speak to you again. You know, I spent most of my life talking too little and thinking too much. I always believed silence could protect people from pain, but I see now, silence only grows heavier. So tonight, I'm going to do what I should have done years ago. I'm going to tell you everything. I'm sitting here at the old oak desk, the one that used to wobble every time you leaned on it to draw. You remember that? You'd cover it in crayons and stickers, and I'd pretend to be angry about it. That desk has more of your childhood carved into it than I do in my memory. The lamp beside me flickers every few seconds. It's raining outside, steady and gentle, like a rhythm trying to calm my heart. I can hear the wind brushing against the window panes. It sounds almost like whispers. Maybe the house is whispering back to me, after all these years of holding my secrets. You were such a tiny thing when I first held you. I remember the nurse handing you to me, all wrapped in a pink blanket, your face scrunched up like you were already unimpressed with the world. Huh. You didn't cry much, though. You just stared at me. Those eyes. They were your mother's eyes, bright, questioning, and far too wise for a newborn. I whispered to you that night, do you remember? Of course, you don't. But I told you, I'll never let anything hurt you. And maybe that was the first lie I ever told you. Not because I meant to lie, but because life doesn't care about promises. When you were 5, you used to run barefoot across the front yard, chasing fireflies. Your laugh filled the whole neighborhood. Mrs. Carter next door said she could always tell when you were outside. She said your laugh sounded like bells on the wind. I'd sit on the porch with your mom, watching you spin and stumble, your hair catching the last light of the sun. Those were the moments I thought would last forever. But forever is such a fragile word. Your mom, she was complicated, beautifully so. She had this fire in her that could warm a room or burn it down. I fell in love with her because she made me feel alive and afraid both at once. But somewhere along the way, that fire turned into smoke, and we started to suffocate inside the very life we built together. I'm not telling you this to make excuses. God knows I've made enough of those in my time. I just want you to understand where my story begins. Not with evil or anger, but with love that turned in on itself. There's something about small towns. You grow up thinking everyone's got it figured out, that the world ends at the edge of Main Street. You work, you marry, you raise kids, you wave to your neighbors, and you pretend the cracks in your heart don't show. Millersville was like that. The kind of town where people smiled with their lips but not their eyes. I worked at the mill, same place your grandfather did before me. The machines were old, the pay was bad, but it was honest work. Every morning I'd leave before sunrise, and you'd wave from the window, still in your pajamas. You'd press your hand to the glass and I'd match it with mine. That tiny moment, that was my strength for the whole day. Your mother, though, she hated this town. Said it was too small for her dreams. She wanted to see the world, to travel, to feel something more. But after you were born, she stayed. For you, maybe for me. And every year I watched that restless look grow stronger in her eyes. Restlessness is a dangerous thing in a marriage. It starts like a whisper, then becomes a hunger. I remember the first night she didn't come home on time. I was in the kitchen, fixing that leaky pipe under the sink. You were asleep upstairs. It was past midnight when I heard her car pull up. She came in smelling like rain and perfume, the kind she wore when we first met. She smiled like nothing was wrong, kissed my cheek and said, "I went for a drive." But something in her voice cracked, and I knew. Not what, not who, but I knew something had shifted. That night, after she went to bed, I sat at this same desk and tried to write her a letter. I wrote, "Tell me the truth, whatever it is." Then I tore it up, because sometimes the truth is the one thing you can't survive. You grew up seeing the best of us, the smiles at breakfast, the family photos, the Sunday drives. But behind every photograph there were things you couldn't see. The arguments whispered after you went to bed, the apologies that never came, the distance that grew inch by inch, like frost on a window. Still, you loved us. God, you loved us both so much, even when we didn't deserve it. When you turned 10, you made me that little card for Father's Day, the one with the paper hearts glued on crooked. You wrote, "You're my favorite person in the world." I kept it in my wallet for 30 years. It's still there, right now. There's something I've learned about guilt. It doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in quietly, like a leak in the roof. You ignore it until one day, the ceiling caves in, and suddenly you're drowning in everything you refuse to face. It started small. I'd ask your mom where she'd been. She'd smile and say, "You wouldn't understand." I'd get angry. She'd get colder, and then we'd both pretend everything was fine. For your sake. Always for your sake. But one night, one rainy, miserable night, pretending wasn't enough anymore. I remember every second of it. It was late. You were asleep. The thunder was shaking the windows and the power kept flickering. She said she needed to go out, just for a drive. And I said, "Not tonight." But she looked at me like I wasn't even there. I followed her. I wish I could tell you I followed because I was worried for her safety. But that's not true. I followed because jealousy is a poison that pretends to be love. I kept my headlights off, driving slow behind her through the rain. She turned onto Route 16, the old diner road. That place had been closed for years. No lights, no people, just shadows. I parked behind the dumpsters, heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. And then I saw her, standing under the awning, and with her, a man. You know that feeling when your whole world shrinks to a single heartbeat? That was me, watching her touch his face, smiling like she used to smile at me. I wanted to shout, I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. Then he put his arm around her shoulders and she didn't pull away. Something inside me broke. I don't even remember leaving the truck. I just remember the rain hitting my face and the weight of the wrench in my hand, the one I'd left in the back seat from work. When I got close, she turned. Her eyes went wide. She said, "Tom, please." But the man stepped forward and said, "You should go home." And I saw red. The sound, it still wakes me up sometimes, even after all these years. The sound of metal hitting bone. Then silence. The rain washed everything away, except the blood. You can't ever really wash that away. That was the night everything ended. Your childhood, my marriage, my soul. And yet somehow the world kept spinning. Your mother didn't scream, not at first. She just stared at me. Then she whispered, "What have you done?" I couldn't answer. We drove home without a word. That night I buried him behind the old mill. And in the morning I made you breakfast. You came downstairs in your pajamas, rubbing your eyes. You asked, "Daddy, why are your hands dirty?" And I told you I'd been fixing something. Another lie. One of so many. That's enough for tonight, sweetheart. If you're still listening, I'll tell you the rest, but I need a moment. My hands are shaking. I can almost hear you laughing in the yard again. If only I could go back there, just once. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who could live after doing something like that, but I did. That's the worst part. Life doesn't stop just because you ruin it. It goes on, slow and merciless, like time mocking you for surviving. The next morning, the sun came up like it always did. Birds sang like nothing had happened. And you ran into the kitchen with your hair messy and your face bright, asking for pancakes. You had no idea that your father had blood under his fingernails. Your mother didn't speak to me for 3 days, not a word. She didn't call the police. She didn't cry. She just existed. I think she hated me, but she also hated herself. And in some twisted way, that silence became our agreement, our prison. For years we lived like ghosts. The house was quiet, too quiet. You tried to fill it with laughter, with drawings on the walls, with your music, your friends. But it was like painting flowers on a tombstone. Everything looked alive, but it wasn't. You were 13 when you first asked me, "Dad, are you and Mom okay?" I told you, "We're just tired." And that was true, in a way. We were tired of pretending. At night, I'd sit on your bed and listen to you breathe while you slept. That sound. It was the only thing that reminded me I was still human. Sometimes you'd talk in your sleep, whispering dreams I'd never be part of. I remember once you said, "Don't leave me, Daddy." And I wanted to promise I never would. But promises, well, I'd broken enough already. Your mother started drinking more. Wine at first, then whiskey. She said it helped her forget. I knew it didn't. It just made the ghost louder. Sometimes, when she got drunk, she'd look at me and say, "He had a family, Tom." I didn't know his name. I never asked. I never wanted to. Because if I knew, I'd have to face the fact that I didn't just kill a man. I killed everything connected to him. You started noticing things. The late-night arguments, the broken glasses, the tears your mother hid behind makeup. And you grew quieter, more distant. I guess you learned from me. Then came the night you found the old recorder. You were 16. I'd been using it to record my thoughts. Not confessions, not yet, just pieces of me I couldn't say out loud. You found it in the study, hit play, and heard me talking to no one. You came to me that evening and said, "Dad, you sound sad." And I said, "Everyone sounds sad when they talk to themselves." You smiled, a little confused, and left it at that. You always had a way of forgiving people without even knowing what they'd done. The years passed. You grew up. You left for college, chasing a life far away from this town. And I was proud. So damn proud. But when you left, the house went silent again. And this time, there was no laughter to hide behind. Your mother and I barely spoke. She started going out at night, staying with friends, sometimes disappearing for days. One morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter. It said, "I can't live in this graveyard anymore." That was it. No name, no goodbye. Just her handwriting, small, shaking, like she couldn't even face the words she wrote. She never came back. A few weeks later, the police found her car near Miller's Bridge, keys still in the ignition. They said it might have been an accident. I knew better. She never learned how to swim. You were 20 when I told you she drowned. You cried for hours, sitting on the porch where she used to read. And I sat beside you, wanting to tell you the truth, that I'd set all this in motion, that your mother wasn't the only one who'd fallen into the dark. But the words wouldn't come, because the truth is selfish. It doesn't save anyone. It only transfers the pain. After the funeral, you told me you were moving to the city, just for a while, you said. But I knew. You weren't coming back. And honestly, I didn't want you to. This town had too many ghosts and you'd already lost enough to them. You called me sometimes. Your voice was always full of light. New job, new apartment, new people. You sounded alive, and that made me happy and hollow, because every time I heard your laughter, I remembered the night I took someone else's away. As the years went on, I got older, retired from the mill. The world changed around me. Phones got smarter, people got colder, and the house got quieter. I spent my days fixing things that didn't need fixing. Faucets, chairs, clocks. I think I was just trying to fix time itself. Every night I'd sit here, at this same desk, with the recorder beside me, and I'd talk. Not like this, not yet. Just small things. The lilacs bloomed early this year. Saw your favorite movie on TV. I miss your mother's cooking. Little pieces of nothing, but they were all I had left. Then last winter I got sick. The doctors said, "It's serious." They said words like treatment, options, hope. But I knew. I've been dying for years. This is just the body catching up. So tonight, when I picked up the recorder again, I decided, it's time. Time to tell you everything. Time to let the truth breathe before I can't anymore. Because I don't want you to find this house after I'm gone and wonder who your father really was. I want you to know the truth. Not the version people tell at funerals, but the one that lives behind the eyes, where no one looks. You see, love and guilt are two sides of the same coin. And I've been flipping that coin every day of my life. I kept your room the same all these years. The posters, the books, even that stupid lava lamp that never worked right. Sometimes I sit in there, in the dark, and I swear I can still smell your shampoo, that strawberry scent you used to love. I talk to you there, sometimes. Tell you about the day, the weather, what I made for dinner. I pretend you're listening. Maybe now, maybe this way. You really will be. There's something else, though. Something I never told anyone, not even your mother. And maybe it's time I do. A few months after that night, the night by the diner, I started hearing things. Voices. At first I thought it was the wind or the creak of the house, but then I heard him. The man I killed. He didn't speak words, not really. It was more like a feeling that filled the room. Cold, heavy, unforgiving. Sometimes I'd wake up and see the shape of someone standing in the corner, dripping wet, eyes full of something I can't describe. I'd whisper, "I'm sorry." But the air would only grow colder. I tried to convince myself it was guilt or imagination. But one night, you came into our room crying. You said, "Daddy, there's a man outside my window." And when I ran to check, the yard was empty. Just rain. Always rain. That was the night I realized guilt doesn't live in your head. It finds a body. It finds a way to stay. If you're still listening, sweetheart, I want you to know that none of this was your fault. You were the only light I ever had, and I dimmed it by standing too close. I wish I could take it all back. Every lie, every silence. Every night I chose pride over truth, but I can't. All I can do now is tell you the rest, the part that even I tried to forget. Because the night your mother died wasn't the last time I saw her. After your mother died, the house became different. The walls didn't just hold memories anymore, they held judgment. Every creak of the floorboards felt like footsteps. Every gust of wind sounded like whispers. I spent nights in the dark, sitting at this desk, staring at the recorder, wondering, did she know? Did she know that I had broken her life too? The night she drowned, it wasn't an accident. I should have been there. I should have stopped it. I can't blame the river, or fate, or God. I can only blame myself. I remember the day clearly. You were visiting a friend's house. I had gone to the market. The house was empty. She said she'd take a walk by the river to clear her mind. I didn't think twice. I should have. I should have screamed. I should have begged her not to go. When the call came that evening, I froze. The words cut through me like ice. She's gone. And I screamed. Not just for her, but for myself. And then it began. The whispers. At first I thought it was the wind, or the rain on the windows. But they weren't the wind. They were voices. Soft, patient, accusing. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night and see a shadow standing in the hallway. I'd blink, and it would vanish. I started to talk to it. I called her name, soft at first. Mary? Then louder when nothing happened. And sometimes I could almost feel her there. A hand on my shoulder, a sigh in my ear, a whisper in my own voice that wasn't mine. You see, guilt has a way of dressing itself up. Sometimes it wears the face of the person you've lost. Sometimes it wears the face of the person you killed. Sometimes it just waits. I remember one night in winter, the house frozen, the fire barely alive. I was staring at the fireplace when I heard it again. Tom. A whisper so soft I could barely hear it over the crackling of the logs. I froze. My heart pounded. I told myself it was my imagination, but then I heard it again, clearer this time. Why? I fell to my knees. I couldn't speak. I couldn't cry. And in that silence I realized the truth. I had carried these voices inside me for decades, and now, maybe they were real. Your mother. I remember her laughter. I remember her anger. I remember the way she scolded you when you spilled juice on the carpet, but she would always tuck you in at night, and now she was gone. But sometimes I'd hear her lullaby floating down the hall. It was impossible, I know, but my heart recognized it instantly. And the more I heard it, the more I felt judged. I had killed something beyond her brother. I had killed trust. I had killed love. I had almost killed you too, in a way, with my silence, with my lies. I began recording these confessions because I needed someone to hear the truth. Not just you, but me. Every word I speak into this tape is a lifeline. To you, yes, but also to the man I used to be. I want you to understand that even in the darkest corners of a person's soul, there is love. Even in the ugliest mistakes, there can be devotion. But it is never enough. Not for the victims, not for the innocent, and certainly not for me. There were nights I thought I'd gone mad. The whispering never stopped. The shadows always lingered. And yet, I would talk to them. I told them about you, about school, about birthdays I couldn't attend. I told them about my fear, my regrets, and sometimes I imagined their forgiveness, but it never came. And then one night, something happened I'll never forget. I was sitting in your old room, the window open despite the winter wind. I could see the snow falling in thick flakes, blanketing the yard, and I saw her, or maybe I saw him, the man I killed. It's hard to tell in the half-light, but he was there, standing silently at the foot of your bed. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I knew in my bones that I would never be able to leave this house again. Not in peace, not in silence. That night I realized the truth. I don't get to die quietly. I don't get to leave this world without carrying the weight of every decision I ever made. And I certainly don't get to leave you without the knowledge of what I've done, what I've been. So I record. I talk to you, to the walls, to the ghosts, to the voices in my head, because someone has to hear it. Someone has to remember. I see it now. Life is just a series of moments we fail to understand until they are gone. And my moments were all mistakes. I can't change them. I can only speak them into existence and hope that somehow, somewhere, you can forgive me, even if the rest of the world never does. You might not understand yet. You might think I'm mad or foolish, and maybe I am. But this is who I am. This is the father you've always known, finally speaking his truth. And now, as I sit here, the recorder running, I know the time is coming when I will be silent forever, and the voices will either fade with me or continue on. But before I die, I have to tell you everything. Everything you were never meant to know, because you deserve the truth, sweetheart, even if it hurts. Sweetheart, if you've listened this far, I need you to brace yourself. This is the part I never wanted to tell you, the part that has haunted me every day since you were 6. It started with a fight, your mother and I. Nothing violent, just words, sharp, cutting words that left invisible scars. But that night, the night by the diner, it wasn't just a fight. It was the night I lost control of who I was. I followed her because of jealousy, fear, and love all twisted together. I saw her with him, her brother. I didn't know it then. I thought he was a stranger, a threat, a man who wanted to take her away from me. I struck him again, and then he was gone. That moment, that single instant, it set off a chain of consequences I couldn't have imagined. Your mother stayed silent. She knew what I had done, and she stayed. For you, for your sake. She protected you from me. I lived in that shadow for decades. Every day I woke up, I thought of him. I thought of your mother. I thought of you. And I realized, the man I killed, he wasn't just a stranger. He was family. He was her brother. And your uncle. I buried him behind the mill, in the dark, hidden by the rain and mud. No one ever knew. Not the neighbors, not the police, not even you. After your mother died, I tried to live quietly. I tried to love you from afar, from the phone calls and letters I never sent. I tried to forget the whispers, the shadows, the guilt, but they didn't leave me. Number. They followed me into every room, every memory, every heartbeat. I've spent years talking to this recorder. It's the only one who listens. And now, as I near the end, I must tell you the truth. The man I killed that night, your uncle, was never meant to die. He didn't deserve that. And yet, it's on my hands forever. I want you to understand something, Emily. Even fathers, even those who love you most, can be monsters. Not all monsters are strangers in the dark. Some live in the hearts of the people you trust. And I am that monster. I was. And now, I can't undo it. I thought telling you would ease my heart. But the truth is heavier than I imagined. And here's the last part you'll need to hear. I am dying, yes. But before I do, I need you to know this. When you find the key in the attic, the one under my old desk, and go to the shed behind the mill, you will see something. Something I never wanted you to see. It's him. He's waiting for you. Soft rain tapping the window. I know you'll scream. I know you'll cry. But you must listen carefully. You are safe. I cannot harm you. But the truth must reach you. The man I killed, your uncle, he has left a shadow in this world. A shadow that I cannot contain. And now, it touches you. I have tried to love you all my life, tried to protect you, tried to make amends in ways I could, but I cannot fix the past. I cannot undo the night behind the diner. I cannot bring back your mother, and I cannot save you from the weight of my sins. All I can do is leave this recording. All I can do is hope that someday, somehow, you'll understand. I love you, Emily, more than words can carry. Goodbye. Silence. Faint sound of rain. And then a faint whisper returns. You shouldn't have come here tonight, Emily. The recording ends, but the fear lingers, because some confessions, some truths, live on beyond death.